all we knew was sun on the other side of a screen. But then like once we were able to like meet and experience life together and sit at that random Mediterranean restaurant, you develop a relationship.
Welcome everyone to the Authentic as Fuck podcast. Hello.
Hey.
You also wanted to talk about
What did I write?
healthcare system.
Oh gosh. So I had this really odd, it was just a random.
Why healthcare system?
Okay, so I had this odd scenario that happened that I was just kind of okay, I worked in healthcare on the administration side, so I'm not completely shocked at what I'm about to tell you, but at the same time as a consumer, I'm kind of like, what the fuck? Like, really? So I 30, I'm almost 35, I think, years old, or maybe I am 30. I don't know. I forget how old I am.
That's not good.
Oh, I will be 35, I think. Okay. So I just don't have since I had a primary care physician, obviously, when I was a kid. I had a pediatrician, but I have not had like a primary care regular doctor. I haven't had to, thank goodness. Super healthy, right? Well, Michael was finally like, dude, I think you need to like get a doctor just to have, like, you're not sick or anything, but like you should probably be going to the doctor every year just in case and have that established. And so I was like, yeah, you know what? I think you're right. So I was doing this kind of like search of primary care physicians and ended up talking to one who was who I was telling. She was like, tell me a little bit about yourself. And overall I tell her like, you know, I'm fairly young, healthy, haven't had any issues in life, and I really just need to establish a doctor to see annually and to make sure everything's still good. And we talked a little bit more in depth, and she is a physician who's now gone into private practice. So she has her own practice and is learning, you know, how to run a business, which I think is where this comment came from that she proceeded to say, which was, oh, well, I mean, that's great that you're healthy. It sounds like you'd be a pretty like low utilizer. So you're probably not a good fit for us. Because and I was like, oh, really? She was like, yeah, it doesn't sound like you have any like chronic illnesses or, and she's a primary care physician. She's not like a specialist or anything. And I was like, really? Really? And I was like, why? And she's like, well, I mean, it just like from a reimbursement standpoint, you know, since you wouldn't be in here a lot, like it may not make sense. It may not be a good fit. I was so shocked that
I mean, can they do that?
Is
that normal, first of all?
I don't know. Like I still am just kind of like, I've told a couple people the story and I'm like, wow, I get it though. Like I would be a low utilizer. You're going to get bare minimum from me like annually. And maybe I come in once a year if I get sick, but doubtful.
Why do they care,
I'm not
though?
a money. I'm wondering if it's just from a reimbursement standpoint, right? If you've got somebody who's got chronic illnesses.
But it's still free money. I mean, not free money, but it's still they're selling a product. They're selling a service for money. Like, unless you lose money from that service, why would you not do it?
Why would you not do it? I was like, I'm insured, and we were gonna like pay a fee to be like in her. She has like a concierge practice, gonna do something like that, and I was just.
I mean, maybe the paperwork is so much that they'll actually lose money.
Maybe it just doesn't make sense. It was just a random thing. I was like, man, it's a random thing that happened to me this week or last week that I was like, this is so.
I mean, the healthcare here is so fucked up that, I mean, it's not just healthcare; it's everything, right? But because I don't know a lot about healthcare, but last week I was watching this YouTube video where they're talking about how Singapore was able to pull off like the most amazing universal healthcare, right? And it just like makes completely sense. But like a system like that would just never work here because of not because of technology or anything like that, but because of all the red tape that it has to cut through. Because in order to make that system work here, we basically need to change our entire government system.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many people in the government profit from the existing healthcare system
Yeah.
that it cannot be changed without them losing money.
Yeah. It would
That's the
require a big
problem.
overhaul. Yeah.
But basically, what
Um,
Singapore did is exactly what I've been saying. Why can't we do that here? Which is you can have social aid, right? I mean, I'm not a big fan of social aid. Like I'm a very I'm super capitalistic, meaning like let's just let free market decide everything, right?
mhm.
But if we are gonna give government aid, like the way they do it is they give a certain amount in a card, and they can use that card like cash to to spend it in any hospital they want, and that incentivizes the hospitals to like be competitive in their rates. Do you understand what I
Oh
mean? And
yeah.
it
Yeah.
incentivizes the drug companies to be. But here, because we don't directly get control of their money, right? Like the insurance company is directly dealing with the hospitals and pharma companies, so they can pretty much charge whatever they want and keep raising our insurance rates, and we have to keep paying for it.
Yeah. No, it's a mess. That's all I know is that the healthcare system is just a mess. And Michael being in, like, me working in healthcare and then Michael running like a healthcare company and technology company and trying to sell a product to the healthcare industry. Like, you just realize how uh, it's such a distorted world that isn't like every other industry at all.
Mhm.
Like, um, it's not, I
Finance is a little bit like that,
government.
like
It's like you
regulation.
think
Like
government.
basically,
Yeah.
you're not really when you're in those businesses. You're not in those businesses. Meaning, when you're in healthcare, you're not actually doing anything revolutionary in healthcare. If you're in finance, you're not doing revolutionary there. You're doing government. Like for example, in the beginning, we tried to go after government projects because they're huge.
Mm.
They have big money. But every one of those projects were like it had nothing to do with your abilities, skills, or anything like that. And it has everything to do with just checking the right boxes and stuff like that, right? So 90% of I think every work that's being done with the government is like all administrative, not the actual work of treating a patient, but the
Yeah.
paperwork, right?
Of treating a patient. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or getting paid for treating them.
yeah. And that's the real
Um,
business, the paperwork, not that.
Not, yeah. Yeah. And that's why the physician said to me, I don't think you're a good fit, is because
Yeah,
that's the
like
actual
what?
business. Yeah.
If I'm
Like,
sick, I come to the hospital. That's how
I,
it
I,
works.
I thought that's how this works, but okay. Gotcha. Um, yeah. So crazy. But so like what when you said, you used to go after government jobs, like out of curiosity, like what are the jobs that you like enjoy? Like of out of your like portfolio, like your book of business,
the the
other than Michael
the
Brody-Waite's, like, you know.
the jobs that I
I
love
just
the most are the
yeah.
smallest clients, the smallest ones, right? Because then it's a bigger impact. You
Mm,
know what I mean? The higher you go, the more like just cog in the machine you are, right? Like
yeah.
whereas in the lower you go, the the bigger that cog is. Because like if I'm working with the American Red Cross, right? Like I might have the best idea in the world, that to suggest to them. But the person that I'm suggesting it to is a 25-year-old marketing manager who just graduated from NYU, who is, this is
Mm-hmm.
her 9 to 5 job that she's just working temporarily so she can save enough money for her wedding. Like, that's the person I'm giving my idea to. That person could care less. What she's trying to do is do the bare minimum job possible. So whenever I bring something new to her, she's gonna be like, no, 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 because I know this is safe. I know this I can get through
Yeah.
my chain of command, right? So
Yep.
that's how it works with bigger clients.
Yeah. So you would rather have that your favorites are the smaller
Yeah, I
clients.
mean the bigger.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, the bigger clients are the most profitable and easiest projects because
Right.
they want me to do something very simple and easy. But they have all the money in the world, you know.
Yeah. Are there any projects that you regretted?
No, not
No.
really. Because at the end of the day, I feel like my job is to provide a service. I mean, that's like if my job is to clean toilets, like, hey, do you regret it? No, because he was cleaning toilet because it's his job. so,
Yeah.
so it's not the task itself. It's you're serving a purpose. You're serving a client, right? You're serving your whoever. If I'm cleaning the toilet, I'm serving the people who's coming into this bathroom to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, no.
I was just curious, like
Yeah.
if you're ever like, oh man,
No, I
but
have
it
to get
totally
over
makes.
that because in the beginning I was like that, where like if the client didn't agree with me, like I would
Mm-hmm.
get so upset. But
I think
at the
that's
end
a
of the day,
maturity thing, though. Like I think that comes with time. Like as you mature and
you
like
don't throw
you
tantrums
become
anymore.
more, yeah, you grow out of the tantrums, or at least you like it's easier to like understand their perspective or whatever, or to appreciate it, even if you don't agree with it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And to know that like at the end of the day, my job is to serve the client, right? And
Yeah.
like what we talked about, that real estate agent, right? Like what
Mm-hmm.
if the client wants this house, even if it's a bad investment, my job is to help them get that house, not to argue
Yeah.
with them to try to convince them
About
to get
not
another house.
buying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, hello. Um, yeah. No, that's so true. But that does take maturity and growth um along the way,
Yeah.
which is easy for me to like forget. Like when I there's a gal we work with, and when I see like some of her growth edges and things, or she'll do things and I'm like, why in the world would she do that? Like it's easy for
Mm.
me sometimes to forget, like, oh, when I was that age, I didn't know half what I know
Mm.
now. Um
And
and
it's more
how
like life things or like actual tasks, like
just
or
life
like.
thing, or like how you would approach something, right? Like
Mm-mm.
even just the approach. Uh uh and then like the appreciation for, sometimes it's really hard for me as an appreciation for people that think differently than me. That,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like the bigger scale like political stuff, like nothing's like that. It's just like more like
Like a introvert,
day-to-day
extrovert.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, like think like very basic things. Like I totally appreciate and honor like that we all have different opinions and
Mm-hmm.
walk this world from different
Mm-hmm.
perspectives and stuff like that. This is more just like tactical day-to-day execution of tasks
Mm-hmm.
that um that sometimes I uh, take for granted, like the way things that come very naturally to me, like logistics and efficiency and planning and organizing, like that all comes very naturally to
Mm-hmm.
me. And that sometimes it's really difficult for me to appreciate and understand how it doesn't come naturally to other people
Mm-hmm.
and that they don't even see that as an option. Um, so as a leader or as someone who's like mentoring people, I've really had to work hard
Well, I mean, that's
on
probably
that.
just from lack of experience, right? Because I think
Uh,
there's cases like that
like
where
for the
it's a
other person,
personality. Yeah, I think for you, because I think it's more of a frustration because like maybe her level
mhm,
of that is here, and you're looking at it from here, so you see there's a huge gap. So that's more of a frustration. It's not that she's so different from you, I think, because I think I think where you think that about a person is not coming from that they're different from you or they think different from you. It's that it's the frustration that they don't know these things yet, so they're at that level. Because
mhm.
here's a perfect example, right? I'm probably really bad at all of those things, but I don't think you think of me any less than that because I'm different. I excel in other areas. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
so
Yeah. No,
so
I
you don't think
don't.
of me like that, but then so this it's not it's less about that, and I think it's more of your frustration that because I'm like that when I give a task to a designer and they obviously do it like however they would do it. I'm like, oh, why didn't you do it this way? Like it's much better and
Yeah.
easier. Like that's a frustration. But it's because that person just doesn't have that experience yet. It's not because they're different than me.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yes. Because I'm like, I'm okay with people being different.
yeah.
I, okay. It is. It's the gap. It's the frustration in the
It's so hard
gap.
to teach somebody how to ride a bike or teach somebody how to drive because it's so easy for us,
Natural.
like
Yeah.
because that we forget how we went through it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. And that's what I've been realizing is that I forget like that I didn't know all this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Like I didn't know these things until I knew them. Right. And maybe I got exposed to them earlier in my life than she did,
Uh-huh.
right? So that makes me feel like, oh, she should already know it, but it doesn't matter how old you are if you
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you didn't experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it is. I think you're right. It's the frustration, the gap, and like the lack of appreciation for what it is like
You
when
need
you're
so
at the
much
place where the
patience
gap begins. Yeah. Oh,
to teach someone. Like,
I mean, yeah. You need a lot of patience, which I'm not great at either. So
I don't know.
there's that. Yeah. I use up my patience threshold gets completely used up with my children. So my
Mm-mm-mm.
daily threshold for patience, like they are using up every drop. And that's where I want it to go, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so then when it comes to other things, I'm like, okay, my
Yeah, you use
patience,
it
my
all up.
tolerance, and my ability, it's all that patience cup is like gone. Or like I'm saving that patience cup because I
Uh-huh.
know I'm gonna have to use it.
Uh-huh.
Um at some other point in the day. So,
For me, when I
yeah.
usually dealing with younger people, like younger than 25, it's less about yes, I'm frustrated that they don't know these things, but it's less about that I'm frustrated that they don't know those things, but I'm frustrated that they act like they know. Like because a lot of people at that age, they don't know what they don't know, right? So
Mhm.
it's kind of like what we talked about, like when a 23-year-old kid comes to me and asks me to sign an NDA because they have this amazing idea. They might think that they're coming to me thinking like they're so smart and they're professional. Like I have this NDA and like, can you sign it for me? Like, they think that they're like being all business like by doing that. Meanwhile, I'm looking at them like, what a fucking newbie, right? So, but they don't
What a
even know
waste
that
of
I'm,
time.
yeah, they don't even know that I see through that bullshit right away, right? So that's what I mean by they don't know what they don't know. So a lot of times, I feel like what's a lot of the things that are going on right now with like the far left and the far right, it's really like a fringe game, right? I think there's a small percentage of people in this country that are here and here, but most of us are here. We don't agree with either of them. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But
yeah,
the reason why I think this is happening right now is because, like, what was I just saying before that? Totally blacked out there.
You don't agree with left and right. They bring you the NDA.
Oh yeah.
They're
So,
young.
have you ever heard of this phrase? If you're not a socialist by the time you're 20, you don't have a heart. But if you're not a capitalist by your age 30, you don't have a brain.
I haven't heard that.
Have you heard of that? So I understand, right? When I see this like college kids in the far left to these days, I understand where they're coming from, because when I was in my early 20s, I wore the fucking Che Guevara shirts, and I was like all like fighting for justice, and I did all of that shit too. You know what I mean? Because that's when you don't know what you don't know. You don't know. That's when you don't know that the world problems are actually not that simple. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So I think that's kind of what's happening there. It's that when I see these young kids today in colleges, I can be looking at them like, oh, fucking stupid you are, like, you know, the shit. But it's kind of, I have to look at it with the eye of like, oh yeah, that's how I was, and those guys are gonna change too in 10 years time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, even like parents, like I know like before I had kids, like I would see other parents and how they were doing things and like, oh, I'll never do that, or I won't be that parent. And then you become one, and then you're like, okay, they can have dino nuggets twice this week. It's not the end of the world. You know, like you start to make like, I mean, that's a very like minimal example, but
what's
like,
a dino nugget?
Like, what is a dino nugget? I mean, that is a good question. Yeah.
Now I want one.
Hey, they're not terrible, not my favorite thing, but definitely my kids love them. They're like dinosaur shaped chicken nuggets.
Okay. So they're not made of dinosaurs.
Not that I know of. I'm not sure what they're made of, actually. But you know, like I think I have to remember that too. It's like you don't know what you don't know. Like that's one thing. And then like there is a gap. Like it's easy to underappreciate the amount of time
That's true.
that happens. Like you said, 10 years, or you know, I forget that I'm 12 years older than her. That's a
huge
lot. Like,
difference. That's almost a generation. Right.
That's okay. Like I'm realizing that. Like, oh, we're like the same age. No.
Like 6 years apart, 6 more years, she could be your daughter.
That is so weird to think about. But yeah, like, oh, I was in like middle school or something when she was.
I do think
born.
Young people nowadays are definitely way smarter than when I was that age, though. I mean, I can clearly see
yeah. But the exposure to things, like there's
there's more information available. Yeah,
there's more information. Yeah. You have to be less intentional about your learning now because it's so.
I don't necessarily know if it's
about anything.
Good thing or not, though. Do you know what I mean? Like
there's good, there's good and bad. I think to both. The degree to which the bad and the good, I think, is bigger now, but I think there's definitely good and bad with both.
Yeah. I mean, I went through college in a time when, universities started becoming commercialized, right? Because I feel like up until like the 70s and even till the maybe parts of 80s, universities were still considered a place where you go to like uh critically think, like dig deep into your souls and find yourself, and do a lot of learning, soul searching, writing, and it was still this playground of ideas and things like that. And then I feel like in the 90s and the 2000s, what it became commercialized, where now universities weren't looked at that way. Like when we think of university, we think of frat parties and like MTV, like spring break and things like that, right? That's like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like, so I think what happened now is like that whole culture of that university, a place to think, is kind of gone, commercialized. And now I feel like they're kind of trying to bring it back, but in a commercialized way. So it's all wrong. There's, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's why I think like we're on the last leg of this current education system.
Yeah, like I wonder if my kids will end up going to college. I don't know that I don't trust that it'll be a thing
Yeah. The number of people
in the way
that,
that we know it.
yeah. And just in the last 2 years with the pandemic, it's switched a lot. The number of kids
Yeah.
saying that they're not going to go to college has dropped by a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just like I feel like our work, I mean, the pandemic shifted so many things. Like we saw what was possible. Like yes, it was terrible in a lot of ways, but I also think that it has taught us when you're in those types of situations that require you to, for instance, stay at home and do work, or it's completely shifted the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like the way that we're required to work. Like I have a friend who she pre-pandemic, she'd been asking for a really long time, can I just work from home? Can I just work from home? They're like, absolutely not. There's no way you can do your job at home. There's no way you can do this job at home. Okay, well then when you're forced into that, and I remember just having these battles like over and over with her managers, like, can I just do this at home? Like this makes more sense. Um, Even a couple of days a week, no, there's just no way. And then like, she was forced into it because of the pandemic to work at home. She worked at home for like 2 years, and now like they really don't have an argument. Like they're thinking about bringing everybody back, and like most of the people are like no. And I know a lot of corporations are like struggling with that, like getting people to come
I
back
don't think
into
it's
the
gonna last
workplace.
though. Like this whole work from home thing, it's
So you think that
no,
they will kind
because
of
I mean
shift back
we've
to
only
more
done it for two
traditional?
years. The whole open floor.
Yeah,
So in the late 90s, early
yeah,
2000, everybody switched to the open floor office plan, saying
yeah.
that that's more
Like the
collaborative. Yeah,
cubicle
yeah,
situation.
from the cubicle to
Yeah,
open desk, so you can see each other and
to
stuff like that.
open.
And that was like the
Mhm.
.com period when they were like, "Oh, this is more collaborative. It's more productive." Blah blah blah. It wasn't until 10 years later, Harvard did a research. It found out it was actually like a lot less productive, and so these things you don't know until a decade out. Do you know what I mean? Like we won't know the impact of work from home
Yeah,
until about a decade out. And my prediction
yeah.
is that we're all going to see that it's not working out because anecdotally, like, but I know a lot of business owners and I talk to a lot of their employees and stuff like that. And what I'm hearing is, uh, this is my hypothesis. Remember in the beginning, I told you about how like a, a square root of an organization does half the work, and we
Mhm.
don't know who out of that 10,000 people is that 100. So now imagine all 10,000 people working from home, including the 100. Now we have 9,900 people who are the leeches, whose entire goal is like how most people are in corporate America, which is to kiss the right ass, do the right thing, and say the right things just enough not to get fired while doing the minimum work possible. Right? That's these 9,900 people's job. These 100 people's job, their goal is to actually get their job done. Make sure things are in order. Okay. Now, what happens when all of them are working from home? These 9,900 people are doing everything in their power to do the least amount of work possible. So who's left with all the work? Because these 100 people are the ones that actually can work from home and will be more productive. But what's happening right now is because these 9,900 people are being less productive, all of that overflow of work is coming to these 100 people. So now, remember before I said companies don't know who to fire because they don't know who the 100 people are, but they're sorting themselves out. Right now, the great resignation is not the great resignation. It's great resignation of these 100 people. Everyone who's quitting their jobs are these people that are quitting their job. And the companies are going to quickly realize in the next couple of years that, we fucked ourselves over by having everybody work from home. Now people have no accountability. The people that do have accountability, do have self-discipline, and do work hard are quitting. And now we're left with the lazy fuckers who just nothing. Wears a tie and without a thing, who doesn't do any work,
no pants,
except when they're on that Zoom call. Like that's the culture that they created. That's my prediction of how this is gonna go down.
All right, in 10 years, I'm gonna circle back and I'm gonna see where we are.
You'll be like, remember that episode?
Touch base. All right, episode 22, 23. This will be episode 23. Remember, and I think just like this is somewhat related, like culturally. So I was talking to a friend who was saying like, yeah, my boyfriend's like doesn't really like his job. Okay, he doesn't like his job. Okay, he's also got he works from home. He's got a side hustle. Right. That's what he focuses a lot of his time on, is his side hustle, but he has the job.
I don't blame him.
Okay. He doesn't like his job, whatever. But I asked, I was like, does his superior know that this is going on with him? Like, does this, like, his boss know that he's upset? And it's like, no. But I mean, they talk on the phone. I don't know. They probably do Zoom, she said, but like, they don't have a relationship at all. And so I go and I think back to like when I worked in like when I worked in an office, right? Like the amount of the like human relationship and like how you can pick up on these nuances of things. Like if someone's having a bad day or, I mean, and I'm sure you know this from working with your teams, is like, you get to know people on a level that you can't get to know them through a screen. And I just like, you can't, as a leader, you can't really pick up on, oh, someone's unhappy. Because I bet if this was a traditional work environment, his boss, his leader, would know that he's unhappy, even without him saying anything. And I know that as a leader, like there's no way that I would want to work from home and not know my people, because there's so much that's said without saying anything.
But leader is kind of I mean, I don't know if you would call that a leader, because you're probably just talking about a manager who's also working from home, who's probably starting another company on his own too.
Was just checking the box. But I think that's what's happening in some of this work from home stuff, is like, you no longer, particularly in like people that, like this particular individual, like he has always worked from home. It's a work from home job. And he doesn't want to work anywhere else that doesn't offer because of the work from home. And I think there is value in it. I think that there's a need for it. I mean, because that was happening before the pandemic. Like people worked from home and worked remotely, but especially in these instances where you didn't already know the people, right? Like you didn't already have a relationship and then you went to work from home. I see how that works. But if you have literally like never met or maybe like the one time you met them was in your
Mm-hmm.
interview, but even then, a lot of these are like all virtual
Mm-hmm.
interviews. You're not flying in, you're not meeting the team, you don't have like in-person meetings at
Mm-hmm.
all. Like, I can't imagine A, working in that environment, and B, being like a leader in that
Yeah.
environment, or a manager, or anything like that. I mean, even like your and I, like our relationship, it definitely got stronger when we like met and spent time
Yeah.
together,
Yeah.
right? Like all we knew was sun on the other side of a
That's true.
screen. But
Yeah.
then like once we were able to like meet
Yeah.
and experience life together and sit
Yeah.
at that
It's
random
like
Mediterranean restaurant, like you
that's what I was gonna say.
you
It's
develop a relationship.
during those when you're eating together, those things where those are the the extra activities that we already do in our personal daily lives. But when you do them together as a group, that's when you start to realize the nuances of like, son doesn't like Diet Coke. Oh. Like, like those little, when you
Yeah.
learn those little details about a person, now we've humanized each other. Before, you're just this role in my company that I report to, versus
Yeah.
now we're humans, two humans on Earth.
Now we're humans that have a relationship. Yeah. That like don't just like work together. Like
Hmm.
we aren't just two pawns like moving around. Like we actually have a relationship. And that's kind of what I mean, like as a manager, leader, whatever, like though, because you know those nuances, because you can pick up on those little things, then you can,
Yeah,
or you know those little things, then you can pick up on when there are changes or like variability in how
yeah.
someone is behaving, or something seems off or something seems really good. Like, and I just like I wonder what I do wonder if your prediction is true and like what's going to happen,
That
because
the younger generations don't really value that as much. The small talks, the little, hey, I know, like I know,
yeah.
you guys had food poisoning last week. Like, are you guys okay? Like,
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't. I think the younger generation doesn't have appreciation for those type of relationships.
Why do you think that is? Because like there's just
Because their
it's
main
just like
form of communication
culturally
is
like
texting.
it's like the is very externally like,
Yeah, they're not exposed to a lot of
or
in-person relationship building. So what ends
yeah.
up happening is, like, I remember growing up, like I had a lot of like instances where like we had like late night hanging out with my friends, just talking, and like, you know, those type of like, but now it's just me sitting in my 12-year-old sitting in my dark bedroom playing video game, talking to somebody on talking shit on the headset on Xbox,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
the whole dynamic of learning how to have social relationship is not really developing, and they don't see the importance of that, I guess.
Yeah. Cause I'm thinking about like the groups where, even like not even when I was young, but like when I was in grad school, there was a cohort of us. There was only 8 of us that like we went through the entire 2-year, 2.5 year program
Mm,
together. And I think about like when did we, I mean, because there's a strong bond. Like I could see them tomorrow,
mm.
right? And it would be as if
It's like
we
military,
hadn't
yeah.
gone
It's like you guys went
anytime.
to war together.
Yeah. We yeah, oh, it felt like it sometimes. But like all the moments where like we were up late or we were stressing or
Mm,
we were sitting in, there was one of the individuals in the cohort, she lived like in a central location, so that's usually where we would go. The like, man, I remember like ordering the Jimmy John's and the pizza, like I can like remember those moments, but do I remember like sitting in class? No, not
uh,
necessarily. Like,
but when you
but
look back,
it's,
are you like, oh, those were some good times? Uh,
yeah, oh yeah, like when I think back to just those, oh, that entire experience, like what's so endearing about it and what was so great about it were those, the ability to like build this impenetrable relationship with these 7 other
mm,
people that they're the only ones that know what that
Yeah,
experience was
yeah,
like.
yeah.
And
I believe it. Yeah.
and we can just kind of like you just kind of look at each other and you just kind of know, like that was definitely like one of the coolest experiences of my life, even though it was like really fucking hard. Like it was really fucking hard. Um, it's definitely one that I like appreciate and love, and I think it's because of like of the relationships of the other people that I did it with,
Hmm. You
and
guys went through
those little
the.
moments.
It's the. I guess it's a bond of like when people go to war together, they survived it together. You know how like
Yeah,
when you're in like an emergency situation, like you're getting, let's say, chased by a dog or something like that, and then you finally like in a safe place, you're like, and then you're like, the first thing you do is you laugh, right? Like, let's say you just went
yeah,
through
yeah,
some
yeah.
crazy situation, you're like, and then now you're back into safety. And let's say you had that experience with someone else. The first thing you're gonna do is look at each other and be like, start laughing. It's like, whew, can you believe we just survived that? Like,
We did that.
and I think
Yeah,
that's what's happening. Like, you guys survived that together, and
yeah,
that's why I miss like those
and
early
yeah,
days of night owls. Like, I miss, yeah, yeah.
because there's something about that, right? Like the suffering together and the victory together,
Yeah.
like the highs, the lows, like you're doing, and then like uh the very mediocre moments in
Mm-hmm.
between, the Jimmy
Mm-hmm.
Johns on the
Mm-hmm.
couch when you're exhausted,
Why can't
like
wait they? Okay, so do you still talk to those people?
yeah, like not super
Okay,
often, but
are they
yes, like
still
we
like
all like
that?
kind of check in. Yeah,
Are you guys
I
still the
don't know. I
same,
don't think we've ever
or
like.
have you guys changed?
I think we're all still
Uh,
fundamentally like the same, like
uh.
kind of people. I mean, we all have different lives, like married, babies, like
But when you get
kind
together,
of things, but fundamentally,
are you guys different
oh,
with
it's
each
like it's
other
as if
than they are with other people, for example?
probably because there's a level
Uh,
of comfort. Like I have a level of comfort with them than I
mm,
do other people because of the situation we were in. There comes a point where you have to you got to be a super authentic. Like if you don't, like you
because
just
it's
have
an
to be who
authentic
you are.
relationship, like as opposed to before when we were saying like it's like, oh, I'm sorry you felt that way, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
fake relation. Like right now we live in a world where we have a bunch of acquaintances like that, where we will never tell them our true feelings. But we still act very friendly and very
Right.
smiling, and we act like we're close, but we're not. Right?
But we're not.
And we
Yeah.
grew up as adults, we're like we trained ourselves to have that kind of relationship, whereas in obviously when you were younger, you had these more real relationships, right? So do you think it's that people grow and they
Hmm.
change, or are people like that even at that age now? Are people fake even at that age, I guess?
At like the
Mm.
young age, are
Yeah,
people
at that, like,
fake?
or when they're in college, or
I think that's very dependent on innately who people are. And then I think your external factors can like reinforce that. So if you're someone who um is maybe not super confident, right? Or like not super comfortable being who you are or being your truest self, and then like something external makes you even more
mm-mm.
afraid of doing that, then I think, like, especially if it's a young age, you were like bullied or like what you're into was kind of people made fun of it or whatever. I think that then puts you in, it then molds how you express yourself to the outside world, no matter what age, right? Once you feel that, I think that armor starts to build.
Mm-mm.
And then I think you could put someone right beside them who were that was like very encouraged or like um whatever was unique to them, whatever was true to them was supportive, and they fit in, then they go a
Yeah.
completely different way and they're okay being themselves. I think ultimately there's an innateness though, like of being comfortable to do that. And then I think it's reinforced or
It's like a little
uh,
bit of
kind of
nature
honed,
and a little bit of nurture.
like both. I don't know. That's what I
Yeah.
think. Um,
Probably, like most things. I don't think anything is
like
100% nature and
yeah,
100% nurture.
yeah. There's going to be influence, right? Like I feel like like nurture, like the nurturing aspect. That's
Hmm.
going to have an influence to some
I think
degree.
nurture is huge.
Um,
Have you seen that documentary about three brothers? They're triplets, but they were separated at birth. So they all grew up in three different households and they didn't even
oh
know
no.
that until one day, like one of them saw another one on TV or something like that. It's like, what? And then actually, once that happened and they were on TV, the third one found out and
Wow.
it turned out they were separated in the hospital. Yeah. But, so you don't know about the story at all? Yeah.
No, I'm gonna have to look it up.
Yeah.
That's
So,
awesome.
well, it's
And did
not
they
like really a
all
happy
turn
story
out kind of different?
because it turned out that the
Oh,
reason why that happened is because there was this hospital that were adopting children, like for adoption agency.
uh-huh.
They were doing this experiment. This was back in the 50s or something like that, where they would split up these twins or triplets and they would check in on them to study them. And they would see, like, they were basically trying to study nature versus nurture. And it's fascinating
Yeah.
because first half the movie talks about all the similarities they had, even when they haven't seen each other for 18 years. The first 18 years of their life, there's just so many little ticks and things like that they're very, very similar in, right? But then later on, it just shows you how, but innately how different of people they actually are because of the environment that they grew up in. Like,
Hmm. Where's the documentary on?
I saw it on
I'll have to
Netflix, I
just
think, either
Google.
Netflix or Hulu. I'll find. I forgot what it was called, but
Okay.
it was every minute
I'll
of the
find it.
documentary was like, what?
What? Wait, what? Okay, those are the kinds I like. Um, and I've really gotten into Letterman's like Netflix.
Like his new talk
Um,
show. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like I think he's such a good interviewer and I think that he he's just kind of like I feel like I'm getting to see this part of him that I didn't
Yeah.
that I feel like was
He's talked
hidden
about it,
on
yeah.
his show. Like the
Hmm.
oh really? Because he seems like someone I'd much rather watch him in this version of
Yeah.
him than that version. Like that really felt like a masked version of him, like not the real
Yeah.
version of him. I think you could like tell like this is not who he really is. But I feel like in this, like I'm getting to see his genuine questions. I love how he shares his stories. I love how he like the Cardi
Hmm.
B version where he's like
Oh, the
just
chopped cheese?
I feel like he's able yeah, like I'm just like I like how he's able to just be another human with
Uh-huh.
them and not really be an interviewer. Does that
Well,
make
people
sense?
said
So
that that's
I don't know what made
the
me think
real
about
him,
that.
and he had to like look the part, and he had to play that part for for the Late Show. Yeah,
His show.
and he knows it. Yeah,
Yeah. And that makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's he's a performer, right? Like he's a
yeah.
that's his job. Like but I it's funny how I feel like you can kind of tell
Hmm.
that now that I'm
Same
seeing
thing with
it
Jay Leno too, right?
hindsight.
Like
I'm like, oh,
he's the show he's
yeah.
doing with the cars is doing so well because you can really see that that's actually where his real true passion lies.
That's like y- yeah.
Yeah,
That's like him. Yeah, it's really cool. But anyway, I don't know what made me think of that.
that's the world we're
But
I think switching to, where yeah we used to
it's
be
like
in this produced
the real world.
kind of media type of thing, and now we're slowly switching to more real and Like when I did that, like I did this TV interview few weeks ago, and the the host there said when he first started in journalism, like one of his mentors told him that camera always catches a lie, and I think that's kind of now because there's cameras everywhere with social media, it's really becoming apparent, and it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, you can like pick up on it. Yeah, and we can kind of end on this like really funny, like a couple weeks ago when we were talking about hit the like button, subscribe now, like that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was on TikTok, and in my like For You page, there was this gal who I cannot stand these kind of TikToks where she's like, they do like a little intro, right? And they're like something that you probably do want to know about. And then they're like, then she's just super polished and everything. And she's like, and hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. And I'm a leadership coach. And I've been coaching people just like you. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. You know what? If I like enough what you're saying, then I will like it and I will subscribe to you. But I've already determined that I don't like jack shit that you're talking about because you told me. First of all, you wasted 15 seconds and you're on TikTok. Like, I don't have time to know who you are. If I wanted to get to know who you are, then I will choose that path. I know I totally know how to use this platform.
But you still won't.
In terms of a
here's the thing.
Perspective.
If I do have a call to action, let's say follow or share, that thing always goes up. Like, so if I share, then shares goes up. If I say follow me, then my follow goes up. And the reason why that works is because most people forget, oh, I should follow him. But then as soon as they go, if you want something more like this, just follow me, right? But I've been studying this guy. I've been studying YouTube editors and creators and who studies retention and stuff like that. And this one editor said it's so brilliant. He said he was reviewing another YouTube video and saying what they did wrong. And he said what she did wrong is it's very important when you ask them to subscribe. It's not about whether you ask them to subscribe or not.
Yeah.
It's when you subscribe. Because
once
as soon as you, if this is the video, let's say, and here's the point where you give the most value. Like, here's the money shot, right? Right after that, you have to ask them to subscribe before you go into the next one. But if you do it here, then you're actually going to piss them off. And it's going to,
and that's what happened.
Because at that point, you're like, you didn't do shit for me yet. You want me to subscribe? Like,
yeah. And you want me to, like, you, first of all, it pissed me off even more because you hooked me because I was actually kind of interested. Now you're wasting 15 fucking seconds, which is a long time on TikTok. You're wasting this much time to tell me something, and I don't even know why I would do it. Now, but I'm totally okay with if it's like, oh, you provided me value, and I'm like, I'll subscribe. Like, cool. But yeah, I think
for
mad.
Something to go viral,
I was like, fuck you.
There's three things that have to happen, right? Number one is the hook, which she got. Because the hook is what gets you interested in doing.
Yep.
But then the second part is there has to be a tension. So a lot of people do that. They have an amazing hook, but they have a weak finish. So like, the whole time I've been waiting to see what happens, and that's it. Like, that doesn't go viral because people like, out of spite, they actually hate them even more, or they'll just like, and they're definitely not going to engage, right? So yes.
Yeah.
So you need some sort of a payoff at the end, right? But then now you need to be able to hold them through that payoff, which is what that girl didn't. They did the intro hook, and they say in this video you're gonna learn this, which comes at the end, and they just waste time this whole time, right? That doesn't work either. Like, that's why making good video is not just about coming up with the right thumbnail, right hook, because your content actually has to back up that hook. That amazing hook you made, now you have to get it to a point that it's even more amazing. And that's where it fails. They're like, amazing hook, and then
exactly.
That's it.
Yeah. Now I'm pissed.
All right. We're running out of time now, but do you want to
Yep, I know.
add anything? Any last minute word of advice? Mm-hmm.
Drop some knowledge? No. Just no. I think I've dropped enough. I mean, I'm just kidding.
Thank you for all that knowledge.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button and rate us on Spotify.
Thank you, everyone. You heard her.
Hey, I did rate us myself. Okay. So there is a 5-star review. Yeah, I realized I was like, we don't have a rating. So I was like, I'm going to have 5 stars.
Yeah, I should actually ask people. It's the thing. See,
but then it was like,
as soon as I ask people, there's going to be some.
Yeah, because
it's so weird like that.
Well, I was like, why don't we have a rating? Because I was curious. And then I was like, oh, let me do it. And so I hit it. And then it said, once you have enough, I guess there's a certain number of reviews that you have to have before they'll actually post it and show it. So on Spotify, that's where I listen to my podcasts.
Cool. Okay.
But yeah. So don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe and rate us on Spotify or whatever
Thank you,
podcast platform you use. Thanks.
Everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.